Hi, welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astro Portraits. I'm Ralph D'Amicus, one of the astrologers of the calendar. This is the conclusion and maybe also the introduction. In other words, it's to combine all the information together from a particular series we did, which was about actors that did action roles. Now, we've done action roles that were done by women and action roles done by men. And it's very, very different, though there are definitely similarities in the charts. In other words, for years, they just assumed any man could do an action role. And that was because in the years after the Second World War, so many people had served in the military, they just assumed a male actor could do an action role. That was just the dynamic. It's very different now, of course. You have a big, span between people in terms of their professions. People didn't used to work on computers all day. People were much more physical. They didn't assume women could do action roles. They just didn't assume it. They remembered Rosie the Riveter, but they didn't think of that in terms of action roles. But now we have a whole crop of women actresses that do fantastic action roles and do a lot of them. So that's where that series came from. This is really about the men who really have resonated with action roles, who've done a bunch of them or have found their way to them, you might say. And it's been a wonderful series, and we kind of inadvertently started it by early on in the series, or in the series of videos generally, we're doing one on Sean Connery, one of the first important action figures with his James Bond. Born with Virgo, very, very strong Mercury, very strong Mars in the chart. And that's the pattern we see: strong Mercury and Mars, strong Mercurial and Martial signs. The Gemini, Virgo, Scorpio, and Aries, those signs showing up a lot. We find that happens both with women and men. But with men today, it's very interesting because as we worked our way through the series, we found there were other dimensions to it. And so we started off, like I said, with Sean. And then right before we started this series officially, we did one on Bruce Lee, who in many ways was the ultimate action figure. All of his stuff was related to Kung Fu and martial arts. He did no other roles that he did no roles that didn't relate to that. And he was a Sagittarian. And Sagittarius plays in because, once again, it's athletic, but it's also about education. He was, first and foremost, a teacher. That's what he ran a school on martial arts. But as we've gone into the series, those are the different things we find. Jupiter, Sagittarius, even Pisces, and then Mercury, Mars. Those show up a great deal. The first person we talked about in this was Chris Evans, who was the quintessential figure for this. His entire chart was either Mercury or Mars ruled signs. A Gemini with strong Scorpio in his chart. It just really, he gravitates to these kind of roles. Liam Neeson, who is still doing these kind of roles, even though he's, born in 1952. He's still being asked to do these action roles. Mark Ruffalo, who has found himself in these roles, even though he doesn't seem like the classic character. He's not a big beefy. He's not The Rock. He's not, he's not, a powerful figure. But he's born in Scorpio, and he has very strong Mars. So he finds himself in these roles. He became who? The Hulk. He's the Hulk. It's hysterical. Henry Cavill, who has done a whole bunch of it, is being discussed as the next James Bond. A Taurian, but with very, very strong Mercury, very strong Gemini in his chart. And then Daniel Craig. He's a bit of an outlier, you would think, because he's a Piscean. And in fact, he's married to Rachel Weisz, another Piscean. Yet they both have done action roles. Well, you don't find it in the Pisces, even though that's a Jupiter-ruled sign classically. You find it in the other things that are going on in the chart. That strong Mars and Mercury. Jason Statham, who has done a lot of action roles, is actually a Leo. Once again, not normal, but not what you're looking. But when you look into his chart, you start seeing the strong Virgo. You start seeing the strong Gemini in the chart. These places where he likes getting into it. He likes in the strong Scorpio rising. He likes being deeply involved in this stuff. part of the reason why they do so well with this stuff is that the Mercury and Mars rule planets. You ask them, the director says, go do that. They don't even think about it, really. They're always up to go out there. I always say they're like the pawns on the chessboard. They just go out there and see what's happening, Maybe they get knocked over, maybe they don't. Maybe they knock someone else over. You never know. But they're willing to take the chance. Will Smith was a great one. He is a Libran, of course, but with strong Virgo, but also, as I recall, very strong Gemini in his chart. That's his banter, his quick talking. But he also, once again, that strong Mercury. And he's done a tremendous number of action roles, even though normally Librans are not what we expect to be doing action roles. They're always too concerned about the other person. But remember, this is make-believe violence. This is not real violence. This is make-believe violence, and that's a very different thing. Idris Elba has done a great number of action roles, born right in the middle of Virgo, boom. Ryan Reynolds seems to be specializing in that these days, born in Scorpio as well, with Virgo rising, I believe, so he's got the Mars and the Mercury there, the Mars and Mercury ruled signs. And then we did a couple of real interesting ones. We did Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow from the Iron Man series. And when you look at his chart, it's fascinating. Go back and watch that video because it's all about Iron Man. I mean, he's an Aries. Aries rules iron. He's Iron Man. But he's not, he's not a very physical kind of guy in terms of, Robert, go and do that. What? You want me to go do that? Wait a second. Let's discuss this. But no, we're going to make the entire suit come to you. Don't worry. You just stand right there and look good. We're going to make everything come to you. He gets that. Leo rising. He gets that. Stand there in the center. Look nice. I can do that. And then Gwyneth Paltrow, a Libran, whose chart really, there's nothing in her chart that says action figure, and yet she's been involved in these action roles with him because she's the Libran, he's the Aries. They're the two polarities, Mars and Venus ruled, and she acts as that polarity for him. It's a beautiful polarity. And then finally, we ended up with Keanu Reeves and Carrie Moss, the figures from The Matrix, from multiple Matrix movies. They're a remarkable pair, and they really have charts that make them very good friends. They would make a nice couple even, which is very cool. What's interesting is that Keanu Reeves' chart is all feminine planets. He's the man in this situation, and yet his entire chart is introvert and responsive. He's always responding to other people, where she's the Leo, he's the Virgo, she's the Leo, she's the center, she's the action taker. All through the movie, she's always saying, I believe in you, I think you're the one. He's saying, no, I'm not the one. No, I believe you're the one. So she actually fulfills the alpha role, and he fulfills the beta role. Even though he is the subject, supposedly he's the subject. So they're a wonderful polarity. And these are the two, these couples are the final two in the series. We may add other people in there. There's a lot of other great action actors out there, and they got a little shortchanged. I think we've done 12 videos related to them, where we did, I think, 16 related to the ladies. But I thought the ladies were more interesting because they're not, they don't expect it. But now we do. Now we expect women to be effective. Now we expect it's something that's happened in our generation. So that's our little series. Please watch it. You'll find it, I think, very, very interesting. And also remember, come visit us at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube, and please subscribe to our videos. It's a big help. Remember that we do our portraits on Tuesday, and we upload our forecast for the coming week every Friday. And if you don't have your calendar or you don't have your astrology books, you can find those at planetarycalendarastrology.com. So until next time, as we start the next series, be well.